What animal feeds exclusively on the blood of living creatures, sometimes even human? If you think I'm referring to a fictitious character like Count Dracula, you're wrong. This creature lives in a cave and comes out at night. It's a vampire bat, and these bats can be found in the desert. We'll take a closer look at these creatures, and we'll look at the many other animals that live in the desert area as well. The desert is a stretch of land unlike any other. You might think of it as arid, desolate, and incapable of supporting life. Well, don't tell that to the animals who live there. I'll show you that there's plenty of life, more than you might think. We'll observe the prairie dogs, the otters, centipedes, skunks, and the many other creatures who make the desert their home. Watch closely, because later we'll try our hand at playing Animal Quiz. Join me now for a fascinating look at the abundant and diverse animal life that thrives in the desert.
The Sahara covers 3.5 million square miles. The Arabian Desert, nearly 1 million. The North American Desert, nearly 500,000. Altogether, deserts occupy 1/7 of the land surface of the world. Rain is scarce in the Sonoran Desert of our southwest, about 5 inches a year. But when rain does fall, it's often with dramatic violence. In a matter of moments, the first gentle drops can be doomed to a destructive downpour. In minutes, a long, dry watercourse becomes a river in full flood, scouring the landscape. And still the rain falls on desert scenes of drab desolation. But there's another dimension to the desert. A foot or more below the surface, pack rats and prairie dogs and a bewildering variety of other members of the animal kingdom wait for the storm to blow over. Here's the badger. Rather placid-looking, fantastically strong, and a fearless fighter. Those long front claws are excavating tools used in hollowing out 30-foot deep burrows, digging after kangaroo rats and ground squirrels. Now the rain is starting to let up. The ring-tailed cat is getting impatient. He's not really a cat at all, but a member of the raccoon family. He's a predator, the pack rat's worst enemy. Now he discovers the rain has stopped. A good rain works like magic on the desert, transforming it for a few brief weeks into a garden of white desert primrose, yellow tidy tips and desert marigolds, pink verbena and bright green leaves. Dormant seeds will sprout and bloom all in a few weeks, then wither and die, leaving new seeds to lie dormant in the ground, sometimes for years, until rain comes again. Meantime, though, the living is easy. The prairie dogs will get plump, and the coyote won't have to roam so far in search of food. It used to be said that rattlesnakes often lived peacefully with prairie dogs in prairie dog burrows, but this seems to have been unscientific romancing. The rattlesnake makes an unreliable roommate and a neighbor to be avoided. To the Hopi Indians, the rattlesnake represented lightning. In the famous Hopi snake ceremony, the snakes were blessed and then released to carry prayers by way of the underworld up to heaven. But not even the rattler can take the full heat of the summer sun for long. It's a cold-blooded creature, so its body temperature is controlled by the temperature of its surroundings. At a little over 90 degrees, the rattlesnake is liable to come down with heat prostration. A few minutes in the sun, and he's got to find shelter. From the human angle, the centipede may look badly in need of a tranquilizer. Actually, he's a very efficient hunter. Now, some observers have created the impression that the desert is where Mother Nature gave up the struggle, where life hangs on precariously at best. But it's really an amazingly lively place. If we've thought of it as a kind of biological disaster area, perhaps it's because many of its denizens are small and hard to see, or because so many of them, the tarantula, for example, live underground. 72% all told, as opposed to only 6% in our forests. Many are only out in the evening and early morning, but all have this in common. They've learned how to survive in the desert, and each form of life, from the lowest to the highest, has a role to play in the intricate drama of hunger and food, hunter and hunted, by which nature maintains the balance that makes it possible to sustain life in this hostile, sun-scorched environment. The search for food and moisture is continuous. Among the desert dwellers that stay hidden until dusk, making their daylight homes in caves and the occasional deserted mine shaft, are the vampire bats. Many people still think of bats as belonging to some strange branch of the bird family. Actually, though, they're a primitive and highly specialized kind of mammal, the only mammal that can fly. These vampire bats have one further distinction. They're the only mammal that is also a parasite. They feed exclusively on the blood of living victims, sometimes including sleeping humans. Their teeth make a tiny, painless incision in the skin, and they lap the blood. This is the creature behind the legend, a living member of the animal kingdom. Among the many creatures whose home is the desert, the Gila monster is another with a claimed distinction. It's the largest American lizard, sometimes 2 feet long, and it's one of our poisonous lizards. Squat and slow-moving, the Gila monster feeds on other lizards and small rodents, but he prefers easier game, such as birds' eggs and nestlings too young to escape. His present target, a quail's nest. Sluggish but colorful, the Gila monster is still a dangerous reptile. His bite can be worse than a rattlesnake's. It seldom is because, though his venom is powerful, his delivery system is inefficient. The poison glands are in the lower jaw. The teeth are grooved, so the poison is not actually injected into the wound. Even so, a human victim may well spend a few uncomfortable days in a hospital. Folklore tells us that our friend, the busy centipede, has 100 legs, but actually the number varies. Youngsters can have as few as 14, an adult as many as 346. His first pair of legs is modified to form poison claws. So in scientific terminology, he's called a jaw-footed arthropod. In contrast to the scurrying centipede, the hooded skunk goes about the task of finding food the way he does almost everything else, placidly and with an air of philosophic calm. And why not? Nature has provided him with a formidable defense weapon, and his appetite is as easy to please as it is hearty. He can eat anything from grubs and beetles to bees, wasps, and salamanders. The skunk's reputation is based on the fact that his defensive armament is offensive to civilized nostrils. The predators who are immediate victims of a skunk's retaliation have lots more to complain about. His so-called scent glands produce a liquid that leaves the attacker choking in pain and temporarily blinded. But there are some ticklish situations in which even the most self-assured skunk feels at a loss. Here, for instance, in the course of discovering that being out on a limb may have its dangers, but being out on two limbs has more. This rather undignified landing almost drops our friend the skunk onto a hunting bull snake. Recovering quickly, the skunk proceeds to investigate, giving full play to his natural curiosity. Apparently realizing the snake is non-poisonous, the skunk shows no fear at all. The bull snake will strike to defend itself, but actually it's a variety of constrictor. Its usual prey consists of pocket gophers and ground squirrels. It's not anxious to tangle with anything as large as the skunk and only wants to be left alone. Finally, his curiosity is satisfied. The skunk wanders on his way. Playtime is over. The search for food begins again. Something that not even the easygoing philosophical skunk can interrupt for long. Few rivers flow through the desert, but where they do, there you're likely to find these amazing, tough, friendly little creatures. The Arabs who live along the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Iraq call them water dogs. We call them otters. And of all land animals, they are the aquatic sport champions. Unlike most carnivorous animals, otters hardly ever fight among themselves. They've been known to make friends with dogs and tame foxes. They make wonderfully affectionate pets. And yet they hardly ever fall victim to predators. Observers have seen one driving off an attacking eagle. Others have killed wildcats. The poisonous snake that attacks one virtually signs its own death warrant. Utterly fearless, a tremendous little fighter, the otter is probably the most affectionate, most playful creature known. One of the paradoxes of the animal kingdom. Intrigued by the secrets of desert, many people are drawn to the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum just outside Tucson, Arizona. Here, living exhibits reveal more of the drama and fascination of desert life in a few hours than an explorer could learn in months of observation in the desert itself. But the museum is not simply a static showplace. It's a center for the scientific study of desert life. And museum personnel make regular collecting trips into the surrounding countryside. This two-man expedition consists of Merritt Kesey, the museum's small animal curator, and his assistant, Merv Larson. Their destination is Sycamore Creek, not too far from the Mexican border. Their assignment, to find and bring back a specimen of the rare Sonoran chub, a little fish that lives in this particular stream and nowhere else on Earth. The main piece of equipment for this kind of fishing is a 110-volt generator. A mild electric shock, strong enough to stun but not to injure, has proved the best way of bringing a fish back as a living exhibit, not only alive, but unharmed. All Merv has to do is to get the fish between the wire terminals. a bluegill. He'll be worth adding to the museum's collection. One moment, unconcernedly swimming in his own home stream. The next, a limp little form easily and safely scooped out of the water and transferred to a traveling tank. With the main part of the assignment still to do, our friends return to the stream to continue their quest for a Sonoran chub. Back at the museum, Merritt Kesey and Merv Larson introduced their day's catch to their new home. First, the bluegill, far from rare, but a nice addition to the museum's population. And, of course, the very rare Sonoran chub. But while scientists pursue knowledge, life in the desert goes on according to ancient patterns. The search for moisture, the search for security, the threat of hunger, the danger of chance encounter. From these threads are woven the fabric of life in this wilderness of dry hills and slopes. A dove on her nest in a cholla cactus, approaching a racer snake. Intervention comes by accident. The distracting snarl of an angry bobcat. The nest, the eggs are safe, at least for the time being. While on the desert floor, a many-legged individual we've met before scurries toward a rendezvous with fate. Up ahead, a scorpion. Official records show more deaths in Arizona result from scorpion stings than from all other animal stings and bites combined, including rattlesnakes. Both are eager to end hostilities and finally manage to do so, retreating unhurt. Like his cousin, the raccoon, the Coatimundi is easy to tame. He makes an even more reliable pet. His scientific Latin name, Nasua, means the nosy one, a reference to his unusually agile nose, which is always alert for something good to eat. He spotted a roadrunner's nest containing eggs, and he's not going to give up until he's made a meal of them. There's no compromising in the desert. The rules for survival are harsh, and punishment for breaking them is likely to be fast and final. There's no appeal. Plants provide food for insects. The insects fall prey to tarantulas and centipedes, and scorpions. These in turn provide food for larger creatures, and so on up along the chain of prey and predator. That's the way it's always been in the animal kingdom.
I'd like you to meet one of the shyest creatures of the desert, the tarantula. As I mentioned earlier, the tarantula lives underground, in holes or under rocks, and it rarely shows its face to the rest of the world. Now, you may not think its face is worth seeing, but this spider is probably less dangerous than you think. Oh, all tarantulas have sharp, fang-like structures that contain special poison, and it can bite. But its venom isn't deadly, and a bite is seldom worse than the sting of a wasp. Some people even keep tarantulas as pets. Its actual body is only a few inches long, but some tropical tarantulas have a leg spread of 8 or 9 inches. Sometimes rain forces them from their burrows, and of course, the males roam around during mating season. So, it is possible to come across a tarantula in the desert. But as I told you, this is a very shy creature. One desert creature that isn't shy is the rattlesnake. I'll bet you wouldn't want to come across one in your daily travels. They're not always pleasant to deal with, but there's one element of the desert that the rattlers find hard to deal with. And that brings us to the first question in our animal quiz. What is the rattlesnake's enemy? Is it the skunk, or perhaps the heat, or lack of food? Well, the correct answer is B, the heat. The rattler can't take it for very long. It's a cold-blooded creature, so its body temperature is controlled by its surroundings. If the temperature hits 90 degrees, the rattlesnake may come down with heat prostration, so it tries to find shade whenever it can. Often, an animal will live up to its reputation. When you think of a rattlesnake, you usually think of a deadly bite, and rattlers are often lethal. But what comes to mind when you think of a skunk? Its scent, of course. This is the skunk's defense. But the animal has a far more dangerous ability than just emitting a foul odor. What is it? Does it have a deadly bite? Can its spray kill? Or does its spray leave an animal choking and blinded? The correct answer is C. The scent glands of the skunk produce a liquid that leaves an attacker choking in pain and temporarily blinded. But the skunk is not a very dramatic animal. It does everything rather calmly, including finding its food. What does the skunk eat? Does it eat grasses only? Or insects and small reptiles? Or perhaps berries? Well, the correct answer is B. The skunk will eat anything from bees to salamanders. It really isn't very fussy. One animal that is rather fussy is the vampire bat. What does the vampire bat feed on? Is it the blood of living victims? Or the blood of dead victims? Or perhaps the blood of living or dead victims? The answer is A. The vampire bat feeds exclusively on the blood of living victims, sometimes including sleeping humans. You see, their teeth make a tiny incision in the skin, and they lap the blood. So if you're ever in bat territory, close your windows at night. Bats are certainly unfriendly, but there's a particular animal of the desert that's considered to be the most friendly and playful. Which animal is this? Could it be the skunk, or perhaps the otter, or maybe the famous prairie dog? The correct answer is B. Otters practically never fight among themselves, and they're often known to make friends with dogs and tame foxes. They're very affectionate and playful creatures. In Arizona's Sonora Desert, one particular creature is responsible for more deaths than any other. Which creature is this? Is it perhaps the rattlesnake? Or maybe the fox? Or the scorpion? The correct answer is C, the scorpion. But there's a lot more to the desert than animal stings and bites. There's clean, dry air, open land, magnificent starry nights, and to the multitude of animals from skunks to otters to tarantulas, the desert is home. I hope you enjoyed our journey through the desert, and remember, be kind to animals. It's good for everybody. Have you ever thought about what you might do if you were attacked by a shark? Well, fortunately, even avid ocean goers will rarely ever face this fearful situation. You see, the fact remains that more people are killed by lightning each year than by sharks. I suppose it's easy to understand why people become frightened when they see sharks like these. Don't get me wrong, swimming with sharks is extremely dangerous business. In the next half hour, our cameraman will take you directly into the realm of the sharks. It will give you a chance to discover for yourself what is fact and what is myth. Remember to watch carefully so that later in the show you'll have fun and success playing Animal Quiz. But for now, let's see what sharks are really like and what role they play in the restless depths of the sea.
Marineland's own seagoing trawler, the Geronimo, churns into the famed Catalina Channel off Southern California. The mission for its veteran crew on this trip is to capture a blue shark, the best known of the killer sharks in California waters. The crew of the Geronimo will also enable our Animal World cameramen to make a film record of this challenging and dangerous assignment. The choppy channel is home water for many kinds of shark, and for a much more pleasant creature, the dolphin. A whole school keeps us company right off Catalina Island. Dolphin and their first cousins, the porpoise, are the ham actors of the sea. They've been staging free aquacades ever since man began to sail. Even the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle wrote about their grace and incredible swimming speed. They've been clocked at over 60 miles an hour. These extremely intelligent mammals delight in playing or about vessels. They're past masters of hitching rides in the wash of the bow. Skipper Boots Colandrino and countless fishermen for thousands of years have insisted that dolphins actually like to be around men. Around the Geronimo, the showy dolphin won new fans among our cameramen. Scientists have now confirmed all the ancient lore about the happy-go-lucky mammal. They say the gregarious dolphin not only likes people, he also has superior intelligence with marvelous powers of navigation. Experts find that the brains of some dolphins are larger than man's. The creatures have magnificent learning ability, something apparent to all of us who have watched trained dolphins go through their paces at Marineland. And here in the channel, they put on an unrehearsed show. The scientists are also intrigued by dolphin speech, which includes a minimum of several hundred separate sounds. Science now asks, can man and dolphin communicate? The Geronimo's crew would bet on it. In the meantime, they like the dolphin just as he is. It's great to watch the dolphins, but on this trip, the crew is after something a bit more sinister, the blue shark. So the Geronimo takes a new course to continue the hunt. Up in the bow, Skipper Calandrino spots something ahead, some kind of fish traveling along the surface. He decides to take a closer look. Just off the port side is one of the ocean's most curious fish, a mola mola, commonly called a sunfish. Since the crew of Marineland's collection boat is always on the lookout for healthy specimens, our skipper says, go ahead. The mola is a big one with a characteristic round platter shape. The crew apparently surprised this fella cruising along the surface and feeding on plankton. He's leery of the nets and puts up quite a fight. But our crew knows all the tricks of the mola, for these men are descendants of fishing families. The skipper and his right-hand man, Frank Riccato, walk the net, which ensnares the mola and brings him to the side of the boat, despite a real battle to stay free. The great weight of this fish challenges even these sturdy San Pedro fishermen. Some of these fish grow to a ton in weight. This specimen is easily a 300-pounder. Easy now. The rear fins are its propellers. Commercial fishermen pass these up, and sportsmen aren't interested either. However, a curious-looking fish such as this is welcome in Marineland. So the crew takes a look. Landing a specimen is not enough. The Marineland collectors must net the specimen so it's uninjured and in healthy shape for exhibition. This one's fine, and the Geronimo keeps it. Another unusual member of the animal world. But that's not all we want. We're still short one blue shark. The trawler Geronimo has reached deep waters in our hunt for a blue shark. So cameraman Barry Heron gets ready for his next assignment. Barry is quite content to go behind bars, the bars of a steel shark cage. The door will be securely shut, and Barry will be able to work below water, protected from all marauding sharks. Since he'll wear a scuba lung and won't be dependent on an airline, Barry will be safe down below, provided that everybody up on deck does their job. As a professional diver, Barry is used to underwater work and its hazards. But filming sharks down below is something no one takes lightly. The cage with our cameraman is carefully positioned. Down in the cage, Barry checks on his air supply. And out of the depths, a big blue shark rises to investigate. He starts to circle. Barry sees him, gets a reading with his underwater light meter. Like all sharks, this blue is cautious at first. He rises fast to get at the bait that's been tossed over him. The shark grows bolder, and up on deck, the crew has decided that this is the blue shark they'll take back to Marineland. He's now bold enough to investigate the cage and our cameraman, who's too busy filming to be nervous. This blue, like other roving sharks, can pick up the scent of blood or flesh, even in small traces. Our bait or chum is ripe enough to stir up this predator because sharks actually are scavengers. Around the Geronimo, the water is loaded with chum, and the blue shark is getting excited about feeding. The situation for capturing this shark looks promising. Another lure of freshly killed bloodfish is added to the bait. The feeding begins in earnest. And with sharks, this is the most dangerous time of all. Nobody on the Geronimo holds back on chum. Let the shark eat is the policy here. Once a shark starts feeding, it won't quit until it's sated. This is called the feeding frenzy. Looking at this shark, we can see why they're called nature's most efficient killers. Our skipper counts on the feeding frenzy to cause the shark to become bold and be ready to go after any lure. The men on the Geronimo also parcel out some dried beef. Along comes our shark, and that's it. Now one more lure. The skipper offers the shark a bloodfish with its strong scent. The shark continues to circle, its appetite still unsated. The shark's feeding takes it right past the cage protecting Barry Heron. And if Barry is a bit edgy, we can understand it. Boots Calandrino, the problem of maneuvering the bloodfish resembles the matador's wearing down the bull with his cape. He must keep the lure just ahead, subtly leading the shark into tighter and slower circles. The skipper keeps leading the shark closer to the boat. The shark is playing the skipper's game. It's concentrating on the bloodfish. It wants the lure now in a surge of hunger. It's losing its customary wariness as it pursues the lure, attracted as much by its movement as by the blood scent. Years of skill are needed to capture a killer without hook or spear, especially a shark. Capture is moments away. The shark follows closely, pursuing the bloodfish. Into the loop. He's snared, and the fight begins. He's lassoed tightly with the Geronimo's own secret loop mechanism. To catch this shark, the crew made sure they looped it between the dorsal fin and the tail, so the loop can't slip. These shots give you a graphic idea of why a shark's tail is dangerous, along with those terrible jaws and teeth. Yes, our cameraman's still there. The shark is tiring, and on deck the crew prepares to bring the shark to the boat and then up onto the deck. The entire method of landing a shark without hooks or spears is Marineland's way of protecting good specimens. And here he comes, tired out but still very, very dangerous. You'll see those teeth in action in a moment. Finally, the 12-foot specimen is wrestled over the side. Clear the deck. Watch that tail. Watch him, says our skipper. Those teeth, how's that for a bite? Right through the steel bucket. Now the skipper has a new problem. Well, the shark's tired himself out. The crew is cautiously moving him to get him into a tank. But before they do that, a stick is inserted into its jaw. This is done for two reasons. The stick keeps the jaws locked and also wears down the shark's jaw muscles. It also keeps the shark from biting its own stomach, which is loosely attached to his insides and might come up in his mouth. Take another look at those teeth. With the shark exhausted, the crew works to get it into a saltwater holding tank to keep it in good condition. Everybody has to be alert. Well, it looks like we're all right. The Geronimo has captured another prime specimen for the big tanks at Marineland. And we even have it on film. Say, wait a minute. I think we forgot somebody. Well, the crew remembers also and moves to retrieve our cameraman still submerged in his shark cage. Of course, he can slip out of the cage himself, but there's still plenty of bait in the water, and at this moment there are signs of several more big sharks in the neighborhood. Up comes the cage. Not really too soon, because Barry Heron's air was running low while the crew was battling the shark. For the crew of the Geronimo, it was a good catch. And for our cameraman, Barry Heron, it was an unforgettable experience underneath the sea with one of the fiercest members of the animal world. Coming back from the Catalina Channel after our shark expedition, the crew figures it's a typical day. One big capture, which you saw, and one near miss when another shark bit through a 1,000-pound test rope. So it's not as easy as it looks. With a big blue shark safely berthed inside a saltwater holding tank, the Geronimo heads for the Marineland Tower. The crew takes time to clean up the trawler, but not with a shark-perforated bucket. That's right, a steel bucket the shark tore up with one bite. It bears eloquent witness to the power of those jaws. Back at Marineland, the Geronimo prepares to deliver its cargo of the day at the Oceanarium's own pier. The shark is stunned and in a state of shock in its new environment. The 12-foot blue is transferred to a portable tank for delivery to the big Oceanarium. Afternoon crowds often get a bonus look at new arrivals to the Marineland population that are being unloaded here on the pier. To many, it must all seem rather routine, just shipments of fresh fish coming in from trawlers. But all these specimens that are delivered here have been caught without benefit of hook or spear. Our battling blue shark finally made it. But like other living things in a similar situation, he's suffering from sort of an environmental shock after being uprooted from the hunting grounds of the Catalina Channel. He needs help to get over his hangover. And a Marineland diver is there to nurse him along in his first hours. This form of intensive care is known as shark walking. And believe me, a line is not forming for volunteers for this job. The diver first makes sure the shark is breathing. Then he remains in motion to keep water flowing through the shark's system. For the onlookers, there's real suspense, of course. There's always a chance that a new shark is liable to hurl himself against the viewports or suddenly start attacking other fish. More to the point, the shark is always capable of going after the diver. Later daily feedings keep it docile and unaggressive, at least that's the idea. In the meantime, our California blue shark has revived. And he's apparently feeling quite vigorous. The diver really has to hustle to keep up with him. It looks like another successful capture. The result of many thousands of man-hours to keep this oval tank stocked so that man can better understand the animal world of the sea.
As you can see, capturing live sharks is a daring and dangerous procedure. You can now imagine the effort it took to bring this group of sharks to the exhibit here at SeaWorld in San Diego. This fantastic display allows both the SeaWorld curators and park visitors an intimate view of these frightening sea inhabitants. Sharks have been around since prehistoric times, yet they remain among the most misunderstood creatures. Actually, sharks are quite predictable. Some shark research has concentrated on locating recurrent behavior patterns. Two areas of study concern the effects of sound and electricity on shark behavior. Sharks seem attracted to intermittent and irregular sounds. Ocean experiments utilizing underwater sound transmitters have attracted hundreds of sharks. The area of electrical charges is equally curious. Studies have indicated that certain shark species may use the reception of electrical charges to navigate underwater. Sharks have a special organ known as the ampullae of Lorenzini. These are small sensory pits located on top and below the shark's snout. They hold a jelly-like substance that is very sensitive to electrical fields. You know, I've heard there's a new underwater stereo system for divers. Well, after learning all this, I can assure you, you won't find me testing it on my next dive. Sharks really have been saddled with a bad reputation. Hollywood certainly hasn't helped their image. But the shark's aggressiveness, as with virtually every other member of the animal kingdom, is usually a defensive or predatory reaction. Well, I doubt if any of us will have any qualms about giving these sharks their space. Now, let's have some fun playing animal quiz and find out if we really would be prepared for a shark encounter. There are approximately 250 species of sharks. We were traveling to capture one particular species. What is its name? Is it a nurse shark? Is it a gray shark? Or a blue shark? Well, if you answered C, a blue shark, you're correct. Of the 250 species, only 35 to 40 may be considered dangerous to man. As we found out, the blue shark is certainly one of them. But even aggressive sharks have rivals. Dolphins don't carry reputations as vicious warriors, but they frequently engage in deadly battles with sharks. If odds makers were judging one of these matchups, the dolphins would always be the clear favorite. Is this true or false? Well, the correct answer is true. Dolphins use their great intelligence and speed to consistently outbattle the sharks. The dolphin superiority is so substantial that experiments with lemon sharks and bottlenose dolphins have shown that if given the chance, sharks will avoid dolphins. I hope you're doing well with the quiz. Now I'll be able to recognize many of you at the beach. You'll be the ones carrying pet dolphins into the water. Well, Fortunately, not all of the creatures we encountered on our shark hunt are known for their fighting ability. This one is commonly called a sunfish, but his actual name is something else. Is it a Bora Bora, a Mola Mola, or a Cola Cola? Well, if you answered B, Mola Mola, you're correct. And that's a real tongue twister. This specimen weighed 300 pounds, but they can weigh up to 2,000 pounds. That would be something like hooking into a hippopotamus. Well, let's have some fun now with a question about the blue shark. Once our cameraman was in the water, we began to attract the shark with chum. When sharks are feeding, they exhibit their most dangerous behavior. This feeding can develop into a dramatic situation that is referred to by a specific name. Is this called a feeding frenzy, a munching madness, or a fasting fever? Well, if you answered A, you're correct. A feeding frenzy does not develop every time that sharks eat. But once a feeding frenzy begins, all the sharks in the vicinity become more aggressive than normal. When divers are underwater with sharks, it can be a very confusing situation. With a diving mask on, seeing things is even more difficult because your peripheral vision is limited. It helps to know that sharks normally move in a certain pattern around their prey. Is this a circular pattern, or an S pattern, or a sideways drift? Well, the correct answer is A, a circular pattern. For this reason, it's best for divers to back themselves up against coral or rocks to limit the area which is exposed to the shark. I don't know about you, but if I went shark diving, I'd be perfectly happy to use a shark cage. Now, here's our last question on Animal Quiz. After the blue shark was captured, the crew was still not out of danger. What additional precautionary measures did they take? And here's a hint for you. It protects both the crew and the shark. Is it removing the shark's teeth? Sedating the shark with drugs? Inserting a stick in the shark's jaw? Well, if you answered C, you're correct. The stick keeps the jaws locked. This is important for the crew, since a shark has razor-sharp teeth in or out of water. The stick also helps keep the shark from injuring himself. Well, I hope you all had fun seeing these fascinating creatures and playing Animal Quiz. With popular exhibits like this enclosure at SeaWorld, we can all continue to discover more about the creatures surrounding us. Please join me again soon for another look at the new animal world. And remember, be kind to animals, even sharks. It's good for everybody. How would you like to be a warrior and have to face a vicious lion armed only with these weapons? Well, fortunately, you won't have to. But Maasai warriors have been doing it for centuries. Once considered among the most fierce of African warriors, the Maasai have settled into a peaceful, nomadic existence. However, they've retained their traditions and folklore. But changes have come to the timeless veldt as they have to other places around the globe. We're going to explore the lifestyle of the fascinating Maasai and see how the changes have affected their relationship with the wildlife of Kenya. So watch closely, and a little later we'll have some fun playing animal quiz and maybe face down a lion of our own.
In East Africa, open grasslands stretch unbroken and unblemished to distant blue horizons. This is primeval Africa, eternal Africa, the unchanged Africa of dreams and imagination. Even the Maasai people who cross these plains with their herds seem to be more a part of eternity than an age of motor cars and jets, more tied to the earth and their animals than to the 20th century governments of Kenya and Tanzania. And indeed, they are. All Maasai life centers around their cattle. A Maasai male spends all of his days, all of his life, with cattle. He is taught to revere both his cattle and the grass upon which it feeds. The Maasai say, God gave us cattle and grass. Cattle are in our hearts. A Maasai learns all he needs to know from his parents and the village elders. Their legends tell that they ascended a great escarpment and arrived here 300 years ago. They were staggered with amazement at the beauty, the fertility, and the greenness of the land they found. There were numberless trees, wide stretches of open grasses, many streams and rivers, and the land was empty. All that was to be seen were wild animals and the birds of the air. Able to rely on their herds for all their needs, the Maasai had moved freely over the face of Africa for many years in search of pastures. But nowhere had they seen pasture lands like these, where great herds of wild animals migrate across the plains, following the growth of the greenest, most nourishing grasses. So the people decided to stay. They and their cattle would share this land with its wild creatures. The ancient tribal belief is that God, in dividing the riches of the earth, gave all the world's cattle to the Maasai. The herdsmen start each day by praying to their God to protect the cattle. Then they herd the animals out to graze. Because of the Maasai's preoccupation with cattle, because they will eat no other meat than that of their cattle, the wildlife with which they share this part of Africa was not hunted, but allowed to coexist in the peace and plenty of these rich grasslands. And so it is that great concentrations of wild animals still exist on this part of Africa today. Here, all living things share the riches of the earth equally. On the plains of East Africa, the Maasai and their cattle have thrived. 75 years ago, the tribesmen numbered about 20,000. Today, there are perhaps 140,000. Their settlements dot the Great Rift Valley where it straddles the equator. They build their temporary villages where conditions are best for their herds and stay as long as there is water and nourishing grasses. Then they move on. Wherever these nomads wander, they maintain their much-beloved way of life. They do not like cities. They believe the old ways are best. In the Maasai way of life, there's time for youngsters to play, for oldsters to gossip, or engage in a game of chance. Cattle provide for almost all the people's needs. Even the huts in which they live are plastered with cattle dung. And there's always an ample supply for any necessary repairs. The Maasai believe that they are God's chosen people and live a life of perfect contentment. Their duties are carefully divided and well understood by all. The women busy themselves in the village, working and chattering until evening, when the cows return to be milked. And the men spend the long African days in nature's pastures with their cherished herds. Maasai land includes the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, the Ngorongoro crater, and the Serengeti plains, and is the grazing ground for the largest, most varied numbers of wild animals on Earth. The Maasai people feel a kinship with this wildlife and express many of their ideas and beliefs in terms of the animals. One Maasai proverb says, "You cannot make an ostrich hate its own feathers." Another says, "A zebra takes its stripes wherever it goes." The Maasai feel close to nature and their god, Enkai. The elders teach the young to pray to Enkai, who dwells on Mount Kilimanjaro, for it is he that sends rain. To the Maasai, rain means green grasses. So to the Maasai, rain is life. This part of Africa has only two seasons, the dry and the rainy. The Maasai calendar names each month according to how wet or dry it is. August, for example, is the dry grass month. September is the month of hunger because everything is dry. And December is the month of showers. Any time there is rain is a happy time for the Maasai. And they see their joy reflected in the animal world. For the Maasai, a time of plenty is a time for celebration. As the sound of Maasai singing and dancing echo over the veldt, all of nature seems to celebrate. Now man and beast alike can eat and drink their fill. A Maasai riddle asks, what is the most paramount thing in a man's life? The answer is his stomach. The essential, elemental things get full recognition and appreciation from the Maasai people. Their approach to life is, in some ways, as basic as that of the wild creatures with which they share these plains. The cow's blood which they drink gives them strength. And today they are as mighty as in the days when their name rang round the world as some of Africa's fiercest warriors. In those days, they raided neighboring tribes for cattle. So feared were they in the 19th century that Arab slave traders dared not cross their territory. Yet for all their warlike characteristics, they did not conquer and rule other people. Their outlook was philosophical. Each tribe was entitled to its own place on the plains, just as each of nature's creatures is entitled to its own sustenance. The Maasai warrior tradition survives even today, although there are no wars to fight, and the custom of spearing lions as proof of one's bravery is no longer allowed. Within Maasai society, the elite warrior class remains. The Maasai are fond of philosophizing, of proverbs and sayings. They say, if a thing is truly yours, nobody should be able to take it away. So the young warriors still spend their days eating, drinking, and dancing. Outsiders, even their own countrymen, have criticized them. But they reply, is this not the way God created us? And look at the creatures around us. Do they not live as we do? Indeed, the way of life here seems supremely satisfying to all. And as the world gazes upon these beautiful animals, it should be remembered that historically, East African wildlife owes much to its good fortune in sharing this bit of earth with the people who call themselves Maasai. On the verdant savannas of East Africa, wild animals and the cattle of the Maasai have coexisted over many long years. But even on this seemingly changeless landscape, time has brought change. Modern veterinary medicine has increased the number of cattle owned by the Maasai, just as the number of people themselves has grown. A Maasai measures his status by the size, not the quality of his herd. Water is scarce here, but each year there has been more and more domestic stock competing with the wild animals for the available sources. The Maasai herdsmen keep their cattle in concentrated herds, and the combined close grazing and trampling of the landscape ruins the grasses and exhausts the water holes. So each year, the situation for the wild animals sharing this common habitat has become less favorable. In the dry season, the wild creatures can be seen wandering hopelessly across the withering veldt. And the Maasai remove their cattle to whatever water holes remain. In some places, cattle have eaten the land bare and killed the roots of the precious grasses, and their hooves have cut the earth to dust. Nowhere has the situation become more desperate for wildlife than in the Maasai Amboseli Game Reserve. The Kenya government has tried over the years to manage the affairs of the Maasai and the wildlife to the best advantage for both. But as the cattle of these nomads now number over 1 million, the wild animals have suffered increasingly. At a recent meeting between the Maasai leaders and government representatives, after 5 years of negotiations, a proposal was set forth whereby if the Maasai would leave Amboseli to the wild animals, the government would guarantee them a supply of water pumped to an area outside the reserve. The Maasai have long been most reluctant to give up the lands of Amboseli, and much discussion was in order. Finally, the prospect of water all year round seemed too attractive to pass by. An agreement was reached. The Maasai began to move out, herding their cattle away and destroying their villages. An old Maasai riddle asks, what is the most ravenous thing on earth? The answer is fire. But to those who care about wildlife, the answer in recent years has seemed to be cattle. Now the Maasai of Amboseli have moved their cows to other pastures, leaving this land to the creatures that were here before any man set his foot upon the earth. And today, visitors from all over the world come to marvel at the small part of Africa which again seems to have recaptured its original splendor.
These tourists owe their pleasure, these animals owe their very lives to the compromises worked out between the Kenya government and the Maasai. Maasai tradition and the mystique regarding their cattle run deep, and their requirements are in conflict with those of wild creatures. Yet the needs of all living things on our overcrowded planet must be met. And our urgent hope is that these proud beasts will remain forever on the plains of Maasai land.
Some people think that this is what you need to face a lion. Or maybe a Maasai spear, or better yet, a gun. Well, in some circumstances, that's probably true. If I were to come across a lion in the bush with his kill, I'd wish for more than my good looks for company. But today, I certainly don't need these, because this young lion is Kiza, and he's feeling less than vicious today. As a matter of fact, he's been downright playful. For centuries, the Maasai have shared the African savannas with the wildlife, including the lions, in a spirit of coexistence. But even with their infinite respect for nature, they inadvertently caused harm to their wild neighbors of East Africa. Trying to balance the needs of people against those of animals is an agonizing problem, a problem with no easy answer. In his prime, a lion is stunning. He will measure 9 feet from his nose to tail tip and weigh as much as 400 pounds. There are animals bigger and stronger, but the lion is called king of the beasts. But for all his strength and cunning, he is no match for the encroachment of men and their civilization. Time will tell if the king will continue to rule his domain. And time will tell how much you remember about the Maasai and their relationship to the animal world as we play Animal Quiz. Have a good time, because it's just for fun. Here's your first question. A Maasai learns all he needs to know from his parents and elders, but all Maasai life centers around one thing. What is it? Their families, their traditions, or their cattle? Well, the answer is C. Their cattle. A Maasai male spends all the days of his life with cattle. Did you answer that one right? Well, try this one. The Maasai calendar names each month according to how wet or dry it is. Do you remember the name for December? Is it the dry grass month, the month of showers, or is it the month of hunger? Well, if you answered B, the month of showers, good for you. That was a tough question. Now try this one. The elders teach the young to pray to their god Enkai, whom they believe dwells on Mount Kilimanjaro. In answer to their prayers, what does Enkai send? Does he send the rain, the sunshine, or the grass? Well, the answer is A, the rain. Rain means green grasses, and so to the Maasai, rain means life. Well, don't give up yet. There's still more to know about the Maasai and their country. See if you can answer this question. The Maasai were once known as the fiercest warriors, and many of their traditions survive today. The custom of spearing a lion is still practiced for a man to prove his bravery. Is that true or false? Well, the answer is false. Although the elite warrior class remains, they only kill lions to protect themselves and their cattle. Are you ready for your last question? Good. The government of Kenya negotiated with the Maasai to move from the lands of Amboseli. Their cattle were endangering the wildlife. How? Was it competing for water, or destroying roots of the grass, or cutting the earth to dust with food, or all of the above? And the answer is D, all of the above. This little guy, well, he won't ever have to worry about what happens in East Africa. His future is secure. But what about his cousins roaming the African savanna? As the ancient Maasai warriors begin to move again, hope runs high that their herds will stop competing with wild game. But the Maasai say grass is sacred and not meant for the plow. We don't know where or how it will end. The Maasai, like all people, have a right to their ways, to live their lives in the honored tradition of their fathers. But what a staggering loss it would be if the price was the precious wildlife of East Africa. Well, thanks for joining us. And remember, be kind to animals. It's good for everybody.
Come on home where your good friends are waiting. Everything shiny and new. Come where excitement is playing. Walt Disney and you.
Come home to all your good friends. Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Herbie, Alice, Winnie the Pooh, Mary Poppins, Pollyanna,
You have a stubby little nose.
and many more. You'll see your favorite heroes, including Zorro, Davy Crockett, the king of the wild frontier, and Condor Man, Disney's spy in the sky. But there's no escaping the Disney villains.
You call that murder?
Lean on him.
Am I in your way? He is not an agent of the CIA. He is a writer of comic books. Hey, don't nobody know this is a holdup.
That rotten car is driving me piffy!
Fire that musket, and I cuts his throat.
Was that anyone we know?
He's your uncle?
Yes, that's why I happen to know Uncle Alonzo has a heart.
Want a light?
You're invited to enter a world of excitement. Suspense.
What did you see?
Surprise. And laughter.
Oh, my God.
A world of tenderness.
Please try to understand, Pollyanna. You're such a part of our lives now. Nancy and Angelica, Mrs. Lagerlof. And I love you as if you were my own little girl. Won't you give me that chance? Please.
Tears.
Tony, we've got to get out of here before it's too late, please.
Adventure. And music.
Oh, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. If you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
And more laughter.
Hey, you mangy cur, come back with my car! Get him! That shaggy dog just stole my car!
Roses and rainbows.
and more music.
You better take a look again.
That's just the way we like them.
It's magic. It's frightening.
Isn't this a clever disguise?
It's cute.
What are you supposed to be?
I'm a little black rain cloud, of course.
Silly old bear.
It's fun. And it'll take you by surprise. Are you ready for the Disney lineup?
You ready? I'm ready. You ready? I'm ready. You ready? I said I was ready.
Come on home. See what's waiting for you. Waiting for you. Come on home where your video's playing. Good times are waiting, it's true. Come where your family is waiting for Walt Disney and you. Walt Disney and you. Walt Disney and you.
Now available from Walt Disney Home Video.
Great!